Well, happy Palm Sunday to you, my friends. Symbolically, today marks the last week of Jesus' earthly life in his earth suit, if you will. Therefore, I would like to begin from reading from Matthew 21, 1 through 9, and I'd like to take you there into a parallel universe afterwards. Are you game? Yeah, all right, let's do this. All right, so it says in Matthew 21, 1 through 9, it says, "When they drew near Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, 'Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find a donkey tethered there and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them here to me. If anyone should say anything to you, reply, "The master has need of them." Then they will send them at once.' The disciples went and did as Jesus had ordered them. And they brought the donkey and the colt and laid their cloaks over them, and he sat upon them. Actually, he sat upon just the donkey, not on both of them. When I read that, I thought, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. The very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and strewed them on the road. The crowds preceding him and those following kept crying out, "Hosanna, the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was shaken and asked, "Who is this man and where does he come from?" And the crowds replied, "This is Jesus, the prophet, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." Now, are you ready? I would like for you to join me on this specific day. We're going to go into a parallel reality right now. It's kind of like watching television. You know, when you watch television, you kind of go into a whole other reality. And so I'm just going to push play on my imaginary remote with your imaginary imaginations, right? So let's just push, there we go, play. So first of all, now that we are there, I want you to take a moment to hear the sounds. The sounds as Jesus is entering Jerusalem. And I want to point out a notably unusual sound that was present there. And I've never really tried to describe it. I feel confident that most of us have heard it before. If we've never heard it, maybe during a parade or a horse show, at least you've heard this one sound on television, maybe in a documentary. Many remember this sound very distinctly, hearing it in 1963. When a horse-drawn caisson carried the casket of John F. Kennedy through the streets of Washington, and each sad hoof beat on the pavement. Clop, clop, clop. Remember that? Yeah. This sound is now what we're hearing, and it's made by another animal as it carries Jesus on the rocky road to Jerusalem. Clop, clop, clop. But that's not the only sound. Remember, you're there. That's not the only sound. There's other sounds. So let's paint the picture even more. In the words of the famous rock opera, "Hey, Zana, Hosanna, Zana, Zana, hey." Anybody know that song? Yes. JC, JC, won't you smile for me? Jesus Christ, if you're so divine, turn my water into wine. Prove to me that you're no fool. Walk across my swimming pool. Hey, Zana, Hosanna, Zana, Zana, hey. And with these words, Reverend Rice's rock opera, Jesus Christ Superstar, captured the glimmer of that first Palm Sunday parade, the patriotic, religious, frenzied carnival. What a day. It truly was a carnival. It was like a circus. It was like a parade. And yet, my friends, there were other sounds. in which hundreds of thousands of people were wedged into this holiest of holy cities. My friends, can you hear it? Can you hear it? Yes, you can. I know hundreds of thousands of pilgrims were jammed into those narrow little streets, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, body to body. You couldn't walk. You couldn't squeeze through this mob of people crammed into those narrow little streets of Jerusalem. Are you getting the picture? You're right there. And you can hear the merchants hawking their wares. Lambs for sale, good matzo, good deal on matzo over here. Matzo here in this tent, come have your Passover dinner with us. Great food, great food. It was a madhouse. There was peddling, there was selling, and can you hear the children? The children were running and chasing each other and laughing, and there were dusty streets and dusty mules, and the dust all over the place. The pilgrims were chanting their prayers, Roman chariots riding back and forth, and within all this chaos, there were a number of people on the side of the road as Jesus is riding by, and they were waving their palm branches. Now I'm going to pause this scene. Pause your imagination for a moment. Interestingly enough, there was an ancient belief that palm trees grew faster after they had been afflicted by harsh weather. At times, doesn't it feel like for you that you've grown faster after you've been battered around by a challenge, right? After you've had a challenge, now you are somehow stronger, you're somehow wiser, you're definitely more informed and a little bit more enlightened. And so palm trees, palms, they became the symbols of victory over defeat. Now let me push play. There, as he approached Jerusalem on his donkey, clop, 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 what must have been going through his mind? What were his thoughts? Truly, have you ever thought about that? You're right there, you're watching him. Was he scared? Was he bewildered? Was he even noticing the chaos or just hearing the clop, clop, clop of the donkey's hoofs? Let me pause again. Now, I'm speculating here, but I would think, I'm thinking, that he was keeping the end result in mind. What does that mean? You see, he entered Jerusalem not to fulfill his human will as Jesus, but to accept his divinity and the final immersion of his Christhood. In the words of our one of the late Unity ministers and authors, Eric Butterworth, he says this: of course it is obvious that Jesus was no normal person with a consciousness that could deal with both past and future in one clear perception. Jesus was tuned into a cosmic wavelength. He knew that the Messiah was not a person that would come, but a state of consciousness that would be awakened in all persons, each one individually. And he goes on to say, therefore, Jesus was saying, I will accept the mantle of Messiahship. I will be one to demonstrate the divine potential of all persons. Isn't that fantastic? So wise, very well said. And so here he is, Jesus, riding on a donkey, clop, clop, clop. And this donkey, this seemingly insignificant donkey, is so very significant in this story. Donkeys are referred to as the beasts of burden, because in those days, that was their purpose. Their purpose was to carry something on their back. And this seemingly insignificant donkey was chosen to carry the burden. By the way, just to let you know, you always, always have a higher power to carry your burdens. always. So let's zoom above this scene now, if you will. Symbolically, we can look at this whole scene. So now we're zooming it up this way. We can look at this whole scene and see that Jesus was entering into a rite of passage. And with the beast of burden, the donkey, Jesus is not doing it alone. You see, he was about ready to enter one phase of being into another. My friends, this is a story about you. It's a story about me. It's a story about us. Therefore, I want to talk about the idea of rites of passage, because rites of passage are all around us all the time, and some are more profound than others. A rite of passage is something that you move through life, maybe a possible change, a challenge, an adjustment. And here is the thing. It is impossible for you to return the same. We try, right? We try to return the same. It's impossible. We can think of, or maybe some of you can think of something that you've gone through, maybe recently. A move, a passing of a loved one, or a change of a job, or a divorce. And you are not the same, are you? You've gone through that. You're not the same. And the thing is, when you go through that experience, you must go through it. Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, not hang out there, right? The anthropologist Van Gennep coined the term rites of passage to describe the ceremonies that tribal people use to mark people's transitions through life: birth, coming of age, marriage, giving birth, and death. He identified 3 key elements in any rites of passage. And the first one is to acknowledge that there is an ending. There is an ending. You can't have a beginning without an ending. So normally, the person is removed from ordinary life, right? Something in your life that shifts you from one way of being into another way of being. How many times have you had a shift in one lifetime? There's been a lot. You've had many lifetimes within this lifetime. You see, life is full of letting go of one form so that another one can be born. And so it goes, each passage shifting you into one way of being into another being. And so there is the end of something, whatever it might be for you, there's the end of something that you've been used to. You've been used to in your everyday life, right? Can you remember a time, or maybe you're going through it right now, and then what happens is the next step, my friends, is that you enter in a state of what anthropologists call liminal or liminality. This is one of my favorite words just because I love saying it. Liminality, I just love that word. And so liminality, what it actually means is betwixt and between, from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold. The threshold is that part of the house that is neither in nor out. And it is in that space of the neither world, if you will, the old state of being or the new state of being. And it's that neither world. And this is where you learn new knowledge. You have new skills that you're starting to learn. You have a new status. It's a time of learning new skills. It is where you're learning about your new footing. The liminal state can also be a time to gain new spiritual strength and wisdom and opportunity to experience mystical breakthroughs. I call it the spiritual boot camp, if you will. It's that liminality. It's a neither world. You're not in, you're not out. You're still trying to figure it out. And finally, you get through your passage and you're brought back into ordinary life with a new role, and you can't go back. And normally that new role is that you come back to teach others. But you can't go back to the way it used to be. As I said before, you never return the same. Now, the perfect example in our history is airports. 9/11. Remember those days? Steve and I were talking about this just the other day. I picked him up at the airport, and it used to be that we could just walk each other to the gate. Right? You remember that? You could say goodbye to each other at the gate, or you could welcome them with a big hug at the gate. And then after 9/11, there was a liminal state where airports had to find their footing. They gathered up all the information, the knowledge, and the wisdom of doing things differently, and they had to find new ways to protect our country. Airports then, they came back from that liminal state, that neither world, right? That liminal state with new information. And we will never go back to the way it used to be. It's now mandatory to go through security. I could do a whole sermon on that, I'll tell you. So the liminal state means that you aren't in your old life anymore, and you're not in your new life yet. You are in the neither world. And the neither world is the most powerful place to be. And the key word, I want you to say the word let together. Let. This is the key word. The key word is let. Let this time refine and define you. Let this time be. Let it take you to where it needs to be. This is not a time to resist. It's not a time to go, oh, it's got to be this way. Resistance only makes the liminal state last longer. It's a time of asking, how can this come to bless me? Let this time be a time of gathering up new wisdom, new knowledge, new ways of being. Now, what you must know is that the rite of passage is an inner journey. It's an inner journey that you yourself take by yourself. It's an inner journey. No one can go inside. Don't you wish that somebody could go inside and do it for you? But nobody can go inside and do it for you. And just as Jesus enters into Jerusalem, he's entering symbolically a rite of passage that he must do himself. It is an inner spiritual journey, but with great higher assistance. You're never alone, my friends. When you're going through a rite of passage, it is your inner journey, but you're never alone. You will always have divine assistance, and you will always be guided to others that have just done what you've done. You will be guided to them to guide you through. Assistance is always present. Ask for it. Accept it as it comes forward. And yes, it may be your inner journey that you take alone, but the burden is not for you to carry. Bottom line, let me just put it this way. You will get through it. This too shall pass. It is not here to stay. And yes, you will succeed. We wrap up today's lesson with the wise words of one of my very favorite philosophers of all time on this very subject, and his name is Dr. Seuss. From his book, Oh, the Places You Will Go, and this is what it says. And when you're alone, there is a very good chance you'll meet things that scare you right out of your pants. There are some down the road between hither and yon that can scare you so much you won't want to go on. But on you will go, though the weather be foul. On you will go, though your enemies prowl. On you will go, though Hakin cracks cowl. Onward and upward, many a frightening creek, though your arms may get sore and your sneakers may leak. On and on you will hike, and I know you'll hike far and face up to your problems, whatever they are. And will you succeed? Yes, indeed, 98.75% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains. So, be your name Buxom or Bixie or Bray or Mordecai Alavan Baxi or O'Shea or whatever that might be, you're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting. So get on your way. And so it is. So. And yes, you will succeed, my friends. Yes, it is guaranteed. And when you're going through your initiation, clop, 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 you will come through it easier, healthier, wiser, and even more enlightened than ever before. That is 98 3/4 guaranteed, my friends. And can I get an amen? Amen. And so it is.